Hey everybody. Before I do anything today, a couple of things. First and foremost, my internet's been really unstable, so I haven't had much opportunity to upload. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to say too is I kind of just felt like I wanted to talk just a small little incy, weensy bit about Ozzy. Um, there, obviously, we know he's passed away, and that's just just a couple weeks after he's had his big retirement show, and it kind of hit me a little bit like a ton of bricks. It's one of the harder celebrity deaths for me, mainly because for everybody, not just myself, but I mean, he was, as Kristen put it, a looming figure in just pop culture all the time. And I think that's kind of the best way that I can always describe my relationship with Ozzy Osbourne personally. The biggest thing for me was my introduction to Ozzy Osbourne, aside from going to sports events and hearing Crazy Train played every single time that you go to a sporting event. The biggest one for me actually was probably Guitar Hero. For those of us who are old enough to remember the craze of Guitar Hero, I remember I still do own them, every single Guitar Hero ever made. And so, of course, there would be times that they would throw Ozzy in there. In fact, one of the ending songs that you would have to play was Bark at the Moon on one of the original ones. And then throughout, they threw in, obviously, like Iron Man, and they threw on songs like, well, from Black Sabbath. I remember I actually bought like the Black Sabbath pack for a Rock Band too, because I own all those still too. So it came with, like, everything that you'd expect. Um, I do feel like that my big one was Guitar Hero, learning how cool those solos were because of Ozzy's music. Bark on the Moon and Mr. Crawley and Crazy Train. And I remember this around the time that I started to kind of actually like get into the working force and things like that. And it's so funny because and this all ties in, when I first started working, there was a group that I had seen a music video for back on MTV, a group called Cradle of Filth. And they had their album come out called Amphetamine, and I still have my original copy that I bought right here. You can see that it is just hacked to pieces. It's destroyed. It's beyond used. And I can't even actually like open this up because it's got some material in there. But anyway, on this album specifically, this particular one had them covering Mr. Crawley. And I loved their version of this, so I was very excited. So I thought to myself, as soon as I can, I'm going to start buying some Ozzy albums. Back in the day, you had to actually, and of course everybody who's watching this probably has some experience with this, but you had to go somewhere and you had to buy your music. And for me, it was a place called CD Max, and it had everything. I found Flyleaf through them. I found Nightwish through them. I found tons of groups. Everything that I listened to generally came from CD Max. And I remember getting Mastodon and everything like that. But the very first location that they had was just about a 10-minute drive from my house. And I remember specifically that they had a box set for Ozzy. And I thought to myself, I should really buy it because the box set looked so cool. It was called The Prince of Darkness. I'll put an image up so you can see which one I'm talking about. And I remember at the time, not a lot of people were happy that I was getting into the metal that I was, because things like, Cradle of Filth was a little bit on the darker side, a little bit heavy on some imagery. And this particular box set kind of struck that same chord. And I remember not being allowed to buy the box art, or the box because of the album art, because I was a kid, and that's just how things were. And I remember a couple years later, there was an album that he released called Black Rain. And I remember being so excited because I could finally buy an Ozzy album. And that's what I did. I drove down to CD Max, or CD to the Max. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it was called CD Max. And I picked up the Ozzy Osbourne Black Rain in the sleeve. And I remember listening to this album to death. To death. This is also my original one that I found. I still have it here, completely been used. And when I talk about that, I listened to these albums to the point where it was almost probably considered abuse because of how much I actually just loved listening to music whenever I could. So technically, yes, this CD right here is my first album I ever bought of Ozzy's. And I actually ended up really liking this. And I really ended up, because of, Ozzy, I really ended up liking the guitarist, Zakk Wylde. I really liked Zakk Wylde. I'm more of a Zakk Wylde person. And if you've been here long enough, you know that one of my favorite bands of all time is Metallica. I love Metallica, and if it wasn't for Ozzy, not even because of the influence, but because he's one that gave them a really, really big chance in their opening years to tour. And I can't even believe at the amount of effect that he has. It's incredible. I absolutely love his music. I've gotten more into it within the past 5 years, as it was anyway. I've been doing this whole thing about going through old music that I hadn't given a chance to. So Ozzy and Anthrax, I never really gave an honest option or shot to. But now that that you get into it, you really realize and hear how much the influence is there. And especially with, Ozzy and Black Sabbath, I do believe that they were the beginning of heavy metal. And to me, it's funny because of the progression, because my dad, he listened to so much of to Led Zeppelin. My brothers were into the big four, mainly Metallica, and when I was growing up, it was the new metal thing. So Slipknot, which of course huge help from Ozzy, Linkin Park, and I got into Cradle, especially Cradle. I got really into them, and they are hugely affected by Ozzy. And it's one of those things where it really feels like that the influence is forever, and the effect that he's had on music is forever. I can't really say that there's no way that you don't know who Ozzy is. And in a sense, I think because of this, it's actually revitalized a lot of people's interest in his music. And to me, I think that's one of the most important things. And it's like when I say with Jong Yoon all the time, the best way to keep someone alive is to keep their art alive. So if you are somebody who has, the ability to, I recommend going and listen to quite a bit of Ozzy as much as you can. I've been doing that. It's been Ozzy all week, and it will continue to be Ozzy. And this is probably the best tribute that I can honestly muster, because everybody's already said what has been said, and you can't really add to what everybody has said other than your own personal experience. I always loved playing Ozzy in the Guitar Hero games. I remember there would be ways to get him to be able to be on the guitars and the drums and all this other stuff. I remember playing the game Brutal Legend, where it was Jack Black, and the whole idea behind the game is you go to the world of metal, and you have to use all these different types of metalheads to progress the story. And Ozzy, his character was the one who was the person that when you leveled up, you'd go and take your points to and level up certain skills, He was the person that like would let you save the game, and then at the end you like take Ozzy Osbourne's car to like drive somewhere, and I loved that game. And he's been in so much of the stuff that I've actually played and listened to. So I love Ozzy. I really do. He's just one that I think will always forever be impossible to believe that he's actually gone, because to me, I just always felt like Ozzy would never leave. He is immortal, and he will be. And yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, Victus. Rest in peace, Ozzy.